Hey guys, welcome back, and today we'll be doing the Miami Grand Prix, which is a very interesting track since they've only done it for about 2 years, since they started it in 2023, and then that led to it being used more often, and now this season they had their first ever sprint race in Miami, which meant that you could get points not only in the actual race but in the sprint race as well, which is about a third of the actual race. So many people would be expecting some drivers to actually gain points again or twice in one race weekend. And since there was a sprint this Saturday, that meant there was only one practice session, which if you only have one practice session and you're really new to the track, that means you don't have to, but most drivers would expect youngsters like Kimi Antonelli, Bortoletto or Hajar to at least do a couple of laps around the track on a track walk, which is where you analyze the track in a way that will help you have that muscle memory, and then you will be able to do it on a simulator. And since most people are able to do it on a simulator, it gives them a chance to actually know the track better. And for most drivers, they would do it only if they don't know how to actually go around the track. So, for example, if you're like Kimi Antonelli, who somehow got a sprint pole, but he ended up getting P3 in the actual race, it means that Kimi Antonelli becomes the youngest pole sitter, which means twice this season he's either taken a lap around the track a couple of times and been pole, or has either at least gained pole from a sprint quali, which is quite rare because if you're a young driver like Kimi Antonelli, you kind of would be expected to fail, even though in the past few races that he has shown that he's actually not much of a bad driver and he's actually a very talented young driver. And then Max Verstappen somehow snatched pole from Lando Norris, which meant that he was 0.3 of a second quicker than Lando in the actual race, even though Lando's lap wasn't quick enough because his first sector was his slowest sector, and the middle sector, which was the purple sector, was actually quite good considering I don't think he's had a purple sector often in that track. And to get a purple sector in the middle and first sector would mean that you'd have a better chance at actually analysing and actually speeding up when you are on the track. And many people would expect Antonelli or Hajar to not actually go through but to fail, but they actually did quite well compared to drivers like Yuki Tsunoda or Liam Lawson. Many drivers would want to be first in this race or second because the way the track's laid out, since it's a right-hander, so you go straight and then you go to make a right, it would be better for you to be second because then you would have the potential slipstream, which is where you are behind the driver, and then since they get the dirty air and you're behind them, you get the cleaner air, which gives you a chance for DRS or a chance for a potential overtake, which would mainly happen on the straight. And due to this track only having about 1 or 2 straights, it means that it has I mean, it has a disadvantage, but then having a straight kind of gives you an advantage on the corner that would be turning onto the left, which means if you were driving and you were first place and you made a left, you have to make sure that you can block the driver that's second, which is most likely going to be next to you because of how the turn is placed. Many would expect Max Verstappen to get pole. Guess what? He got pole again this season, so that's the third time this season and a second time in Miami. I believe that Lando Norris may actually have a chance at potentially getting the win again because he won it last season, which is where he got his idea of the disco ball helmet, which is quite a rare livery for many drivers because you would only see that livery once every season because most drivers would have a special livery for their helmet. And then Ferrari are going to, I think Ferrari might have a chance at getting into the top 10, but I don't think they have much of a good chance of getting into the top 10. And most people think Ferrari's livery is terrible. To be honest, I slightly agree with you, but I don't think it's that terrible because they're just trying to celebrate their first year with HP, which means that they've had an entire season with HP, which is the computer brand. And Red Bull and Racing Bull, since they're related in some sort of way, the Racing Bulls have decided to go for a pink livery in honor to celebrate the new Red Bull energy drink design. So many people would be expecting the car or the cars to go quick, but sometimes they never actually show you their true pace because on TV they're slower than if you actually filmed it. The only reason why they look slower on TV is because the brand have made a deal with F1 saying that their brand must be shown on live TV, which means that you're not actually seeing the true pace of the car. However, if you went to the track to film the actual race pace, you will see that it's a lot quicker than you would see on TV. And due to this being the Miami Grand Prix, it's going to be an interesting one because I know most drivers haven't drove on the track completely for like 57 laps, but I feel like there's a chance they may want to either improve on their score for next season or have a different strategy. And I think most drivers would want to do a race where they would go for the medium first and then try or go for the hards and then try to go long and then try and make an undercut, which is where you would overtake the drivers, where you'd pit earlier than the rival driver, which means that you not always have a advantage, but it can give you an advantage if there's like a crash like they did in the sprint yesterday where Fernando Alonso crashed into the wall, and then since Lando was already in the pit, that meant that he was able to be behind the safety car because the safety car was also in the pit lane. And since the safety car was in the pit lane and Lando was in the pit lane, that meant that he had won the sprint. Now, most drivers would expect a possibility or mainly sun, considering yesterday there was rain in the sprint. And most drivers would either go on the hards and then go long, or go on the mediums and go long, and then try to make a good strategy so then they can actually go beyond their expectations. Now, I think Williams have been quite surprising this season because they've shown some great progress over the first 5 or 6 races, and since they both made it through to Q3, that meant that they're both in the top 10 for the actual race. Now, many drivers would expect Williams to be the team that fails, but apparently, and I don't know how, but they managed to get into the top 10, which means that they get points, or potentially get points, if they are able to hold their position. And if you're able to hold your position and you're in the top 10, you can get your points. Max Verstappen could again win the race because he knows the track probably better than anyone, but I don't think he knows it well enough that he can actually do a whole simulator around it. I mean, they do have simulators on the track, but it would be much better if you just use your raw memory, so then you can actually test whether your memory is better than the simulator. And many drivers would expect the track to be quite warm, which means that if they go very quickly, they'll be able to warm up their tires on time. But if you accidentally make it onto the grid but go beyond the grid box, then you would be given a 5-second penalty for going beyond the grid box, because many believe that it will give you an advantage over the actual track. And this enables most drivers to think that Max is going to win it, but there is a possibility that a rookie could win it, like Kimi Antonelli, or possibly Yuki Tsunoda, even though I don't think he's ever won or even gone to the top 5. But there might be a chance he could win it. And many drivers would think ahead, and if they manage to actually get a good position, which means that you'd get a better position or the same position as you did in the last race or the last season when you did the race, it would mean that you would have a chance at improving. But I don't think there's going to be much improvement from all drivers except for Kimi Antonelli or all the other rookies like Hadjar and Bortoletto. But I expect at least one crash to happen, because not every season that they've done this race, but in 2 of the seasons that they've done this race, there has always been 1 or 2 crashes or drivers out of the race due to some mechanical failure, or they just can't find a tyre to the actual car. And many would think that would happen, but due to the race being unpredictable and the other team being unpredictable, you never know what's going to happen. So I feel like Miami could be a different race for multiple drivers. And that's a wrap. That is my race preview. Make sure you like, subscribe, and also share to other people. Bye.